I'm going to be chatting today about ways that you can give your English language arts students feedback without completely burning yourself out as an English language arts teacher. So I am a middle school language arts teacher, and I know what it is like to try to give feedback to 75 students daily and how draining that can be. So I decided to write a blog post about how you can give feedback meaningfully without always having it be the teacher that has to give the feedback and doing that after school and times when they're not with students. So I'm going to go over those ideas with you. The first step for any 6 of these strategies is that you need to have a strong proficiency rubric. So you're putting your time in on the front end with students to get that proficiency rubric written. I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about here. So this is an example of an exit ticket that I would use during a reading unit. This one is specifically for memoir. So in this particular reading mini lesson, we're having students study the first sentence of a text and the last sentence of a text. And they're having to cite that first sentence, pick one question that they want to respond to, and then write a reaction to the question that they highlighted. And they're doing that for the first sentence and the last sentence. So I'll show you the proficiency rubric that goes with this specific mini lesson. So I'll make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Maybe, there we go. All right, so for meets proficiency, really lay out exactly what you're wanting students to do. So I have cites the first sentence and the last sentence of the memoir using proper text citation and minimal errors, selects one question to respond to based on the first sentence of the memoir and makes a meaningful connection between the first sentence and the overall idea of the memoir, and then selects one question to respond to based on the last sentence of the memoir and makes a meaningful connection. And it really laid that out for what does it look like when a student is approaching proficiency, having a minimal proficiency, or showing no evidence. So not only is it clear to me where students are, but it also would be clear to students as they're looking at their own, or maybe as a peer is looking at theirs. So here we go into the 6 different strategies. So the first one, call this one feedback to 5. So take the last 5 minutes of your class period and pick 5 students and go and give each of those 5 students 1 minute of your time. Ask them to see what they've been working on today as a reader or writer, look it through, give it a quick assessment, and try to give them some really focused feedback. If it's a student that like a lot is going wrong, don't try to say, fix this, and give them like this laundry list of things to fix. Try to focus in on one meaningful thing that you think that you could give them that feedback on, and they could apply that one thing. Opposite side, if a student is really strong, instead of saying, looks great, try to give them that one meaningful piece of feedback where they're going to be able to find something specific that they did great and hang on to something that you said there. Next strategy would be using partner and small group feedback. So for this, I mean kind of the traditional, hey, let's switch what we did today and give each other feedback using that proficiency rubric. Can be as simple as that. Can also do things like, hey, let's look at this one piece of criteria on the proficiency rubric. Let's give feedback on just this piece. If you are a Google Classroom teacher, one-to-one devices, you could have students actually share their electronic version of something with each other and type a comment to each other. That's kind of a fun way to mix it up. But I think sometimes students take advice better from their peers than they do from their teacher. And you could also, instead of having students actually like physically write on something, you could just have them verbally talk things out with each other as well, or ask each other a specific question that they give feedback on. So this is a great one, pretty easy to use and implement. And once again, no outside of class time for you if you are having them seek that peer feedback on just a given day. Next one, I call this self-assessment with guided teacher feedback. So if you are having students, take the last couple of minutes of class and they take out their exit ticket for the day or whatever it was, and you have that proficiency rubric, you could take that first piece of criteria and you could actually like talk students through that and say, all right, you're going to give yourself a meets proficiency if, and you would talk through what those different things will look like, and students are then grading themselves as you're visually like walking them through that. You could even be using an example as you're doing that as well. So I think this is a really great way for students to be looking at it themselves as you're also talking them through. And also, I've always found the students are sometimes a little bit harder on themselves than they are than I would actually be on them. I've seen that in a lot of cases, but if students are grading themselves and then passing it to you, you can probably go through those a lot faster if it's something you did want to enter into a grade book, if they did that initial grade of their paper and just kind of see if they were right on or if they needed a little extra help from you. So that is the third strategy. Next up, we have save teacher feedback for what's most important. So these 6 strategies aren't all just like, you never have to look at students' work, because I mean, in actuality, you do have to sometimes still look at students' work. So I'm going to show you an example of a unit plan that I used for that memoir reading unit that I was just talking about with the exit ticket and the proficiency rubric. And as you see on the unit plan, there are 20 different mini lessons, and they are all aligned to one of our priority reading standards. So those happen to be standards 1 through 6 of the Common Core for reading. So if you look at mini lesson 3, you can see that that one is marked as summative assessment. So I know that mini lessons 3 and 5 and 9 and 14 and 17 and 20 are the 6 mini lessons that are going to build my summative assessment at the end of the memoir unit. So I know that those 6 mini lessons are really important for me to personally be looking at student work and giving them that feedback to make sure students are understanding it, reteaching if necessary. But I don't necessarily have to do that for all 20 of them. So know which ones are most important that students are going to be summatively assessed on, and prioritize giving feedback to those. My 5th strategy is to share a student example. So at the end of class, just ask for a student volunteer. Is anybody willing to let us put your exit ticket on the document camera and talk about it in front of the class a little bit? And usually a student volunteers, hopefully, fingers crossed they do, maybe a couple will. And then you would take that student work, put it on the document camera so all students can see, and you would go over what they did, and you would give that verbal feedback aloud so the whole class can see it, and you would actually grade that student work using the proficiency rubric. And that's really going to give students a good idea of where they are probably going to fall in the proficiency rubric. And a strategy I love is, maybe you have a couple minutes before the end of class after you do this, and you just say, feel free to make any changes that you might want to make, or if they want to add a little something, adjust a little something. And a lot of students will take you up on that after you share a student example and give that live feedback in front of the class. And then the last one is model an example. So this is going to help you on the front end so that you don't have to do as much, negative feedback or constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it, on the back end. So before you are going to teach your mini lesson, as you're teaching it, actually modeling with an example. So this is the same exit ticket that I showed you at the beginning of the video. And this is, I did it. So I actually went in and I used a memoir that I was reading to the class, and I put in the first sentence and the last sentence. I highlighted the question that I answered, and then I wrote my reaction to that question. And I would actually share that with students and just let them know, this is what a meets proficiency looks like. This is what we're aiming for and going for, so that when they are doing the exit ticket with the memoir that they're reading, they know this is what we're going for. This is the standard. We're trying to meet or beat Mrs. Bergman. Just so you know, if you were ooh, those exit tickets and the reading unit plans and the proficiency rubrics, those look pretty cool. I like that. I do have 7 reading units that are composed of a year-long reading curriculum. There's 20 reading mini lessons in each for 140 unique reading mini lessons total. Each mini lesson comes with a formative assessment and that coordinating proficiency rubric that's written specifically for that formative assessment. There's summative assessments at the end, and there's a modeling example for each reading mini lesson. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that that is available. If that's something that you're interested in at all, I'd love to chat further with you if you have any questions about it. I hope that these 6 examples gave you a little bit of just reassurance that you don't have to burn yourself out. You don't have to, put your kids to bed and then 9 o'clock start grading every single night. Make sure that you're using a variety of these different ways that you can give students feedback so that they are getting a variety of ways, because maybe they take one way better than the other. So I hope that you can take at least one of these strategies and try it out in your classroom this year. I am going to throw the link to the blog post that I've been referencing in the chat or in the comments right now. So go ahead and check that out if you wanted to go visit that. And then for the person who was asked, Scott or Ashley, is there a PowerPoint or a copy of this information? So the link that I just put in the chat will bring you to a blog post that has this all written out. So that'd be a great place to take a look at it. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I hope to see you next time.